Hi guys, my name's Lance Mannins and welcome to this week's show. Super stoked to have you along with us. So we've got a great show lined up for you tonight. We've got a superb guest and we really hope you get a lot out of everything that's going to be presented tonight. So behind the scenes as usual, we've got Keza, my partner in crime with NZ Big Game Fishing, and he's going to be making sure that everything is working smoothly with this live stream this evening. Before we crack into things tonight, let's have a quick roundup of some of the notable catches over the last week or so. First up, we've got Robbie Edwards on Dark Horse, 164 kg sword on 60 kg, weighed in at Howick. So not sure whether or not that was an East Coast or West Coast fish, but well done, Robbie. That is an outstanding fish. And second, we've got Andrew Church, 185 kg sword on 37. And I believe this was a solo fish out of Mount Maunganui. So must have been up around Mare Island or somewhere around there, I would have thought. Number 3 on the list tonight, Mike Feather with a real fatty of a sword out of the West Coast. So congratulations, Mike. I'm not sure of the weight on that, but a great looking fish. And last but not least tonight, Paul Brownlee popped this up on the site and I thought it was definitely worth having a quick little natter about from near Koblenz on the Rhine River in Germany with a mud marlin, as I call it, or a Wels catfish. So not a bad little catch on 10 kg, I believe. Not sure of the fight time. Apparently they ate it and it was reasonably close to a bass in its eating style. So go figure. Well done, Paul. And thanks for sharing that with us on the site during the week. So before we kick on, just a couple of quick announcements. We do have the normal Q&A happening this evening. So throughout the show, give us any questions that you have in the comments box and we will be chucking them at Bruce from time to time. We really appreciate the support of Driveline Finance, who are our sponsors tonight and who have put up tonight's prize, which is the Hooker Comet in Jack Mack from the NZ Big Game Fishing Shop. And I think that will be a deadly little combination out wide. So to be in to win, simply ask a question in the comments section before 8 p.m. and it will be a random draw from all of those questions that have come in before 8 p.m. So once again, the winner will be picked at random. Also, just a quick reminder that if you do want the NZ Big Game Fishing shirts, we've got those available down at North Shore Hunting and Fishing. We've got the hoodies available online and you'll see that I'm wearing one of those tonight. So yeah, jump online. We've got a heap of good stuff on there, www.nzbiggamefishing.co.nz. So get on there and check it all out. So all right, right on with the show. Okay, arguably one of the most recognisable names in game fishing circles in New Zealand. Our guest tonight kicked off his adventures in the Bay of Islands in the late 1970s, starting off on the Marco Polo, then the Lady Doreen, and then Strikers 1 and 2. Legendary fishing stories were born with unforgettable video footage of Black Marlin being fought at the Hole in the Rock, 1,250 pound plus marlin at Lizard Island, and the list goes on and on. He was awarded the Tommy Gifford Award in 2019 for his contribution to recreational angling, which is one of the most prestigious awards handed down by the IGFA each year. And at that stage was one of only 2 in New Zealand to have been awarded it. So that was himself and Snooks. Many have called him the voice of the North, many just Smithy. I once made the mistake not that long ago of calling him Sir. He is, of course, Bruce Smith. So welcome to the show, Bruce.
How are you?
Very well. How's your day been?
Good. It's been good, yeah. It's not a bad sort of a day up here in the bay. It's a little bit of breeze. I wouldn't like to be out drifting for a broadbill at the moment, but it'll come right again.
No. So on that note, have you been out fishing recently?
I just did a 5-day trip with Trevor Woolston on the Family Jewels, and
oh, nice.
We got lucky a couple of times and caught a couple of marlin, caught a couple of harp hooker and some gemfish and that type of thing, snapper, and yeah, we had a good trip. The criteria to get aboard was you had to have a gold card.
Did you get a discount on the trip, or was it, you know?
Well, no, it was just a fun trip.
Excellent.
Just a fun trip.
And did you head away up to the normal places up north?
Well,
or
yeah,
just
we stayed in Tom Bowling's for a night, and then at the Cavalli's, and we had a bit of a look around. Flat, calm weather, was beautiful.
Nice. Excellent. Hey, well, really nice to catch up with you tonight. And I'm sure, and I know for a fact that there's a lot of people that are going to be tuning in and really wanting to find out a little bit more than just the normal stuff that we've heard from you over the years about, you know, lure patterns and your favorite lures and bits and pieces. So I'm looking forward to just finding out a little bit more and getting a little bit more in depth on your background and where it all came from and where it started and those kind of things. So I think we might just crack onto it and start from the very beginning. So where did it all start, Bruce? Where was your earliest days of fishing and where were you brought up?
Well, I was brought up down in Matakana, and Matakana School was responsible for my intelligence or lack of it or whatever. But Lee and the Waimatio Harbour, that's where the boats were. And we spent a lot of time, Little Barrier, Mokahinau's, and the Barrier around there. And but we used to go north and fish out of Tutakaka, and that was a hell of an adventure getting that far away from Lee. So we enjoyed that. And Ross Cottrell rang me and one day, and he said to me, I need a deckhand for 3 weeks on the Bay of Islands. Are you available? And I thought, God, I can't wait to do this. It was great. And at that time, a job came up on the Lady Doreen, and I'd been there for only a couple of days, and I was on the Lady Doreen with Curly.
Yeah.
Wow. It was a bit of an adventure after that. Believe me.
So those early days when you're down in Matakana and you're up in Tutakaka, what kind of years was that?
That was probably the mid 70s, and you know, 75, 76 around there.
Yep.
We lost a lot of fish.
Yeah.
We really did. And I'll tell you a good story, Lance. We caught one at the Mokahinau's one day, and we took it in there, the Cow Island Deep Sea Fishing Club, which later became the Auckland Sports Fishing Club. Cow Island, they had a set of scales at the Mokahinau's there at the Burgess Island, on the main island where the lighthouse was. And the lighthouse keeper came down. We gave him a shout, and he came down and he weighed our marlin for us. Wow. So there's something I've got. That's something that I've done that not many other people around the New Zealand would have done, is weigh a marlin at the Mokahinau's.
God, that's amazing. So how long was that happening for?
Well, they have, when they shut all the lighthouses down, I suppose that was the end of it. That was early 80s. You know?
That's amazing. I wonder how many people did that. That's a great bit of intel.
We knew we could do it, and we always wanted to, and we caught one right there one day, so we took it in there, and I couldn't even tell you how big it was, but I know it was pretty surgy when we were trying to do it, but the guy was only too pleased to come down and weigh it for us. The old steelyard scales. Yeah.
So your early days fishing out of Tutakaka or Warkworth, where was your main base for game fishing in those early days?
Lee. We fished out of Lee and Waimatio Harbour there. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And would you have met John and the Going Boys and that kind of thing back in those earlier days?
I met John. I certainly met John, and he couldn't do enough to help us. He really could. Excellent. You know, great. Yeah. You know, he was one of those guys that I'll never forget. He's always been the same. You know, excellent.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really nice to have him on the show a month or so ago. It was brilliant. So when did you catch your first marlin, Bruce?
I caught my own first marlin was right outside the entrance of Tutakaka, actually, and it weighed 164 pounds. It was a bit embarrassing. We killed it and brought it in, but we thought it was the biggest fish we'd ever seen in our lives at that stage.
Excellent. So, what's that in kilos?
Yeah, that was. Yeah.
What's that, about 50 kilos or something?
40 kilos. It would have been a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Oh well. A first is a first, you know. There's no kind of.
I've got tagged plenty since. So
exactly, you've made up for it, I'm sure. So the big game fishing bug was what, in your teens? You know, fishing with friends and family back then, or?
Yeah, friends and family. My dad used to come up, and he used to fish with Mervyn Arledge up here, and that was in the I suppose 50s and 60s.
Yep.
They used to go out with Mervyn in May, and they all caught fish. So fishing was fishing was good then back in May in those years. So yeah.
God, we've even got people tuning in from Cape Verde. Marty Bates is reaching out. Nice one, Bruce. Good to see you, bro.
How are you, Marty? God.
He actually asked an interesting question. What about weighing one on the Kings?
We did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. For Mike Levitt. Yeah. World record on 6 kg. We built I've still got it here. I built an A-frame out of three 6-meter lengths of aluminium tubing, and we made an A-frame, and we weighed a marlin on the Kings. It was a world record.
Wow.
Yeah, on 6 kg. So I forgot to tell you about that.
Yeah. So would that be one of the few fish to have been weighed at the Three Kings, or?
I suppose so. Yes, and I don't know of any others.
Yeah. Wow. God, there's two amazing bits of.
Yeah, we weighed it there because we had to bring it back to Hohora.
Yeah.
And they had scales and everything, so we weighed it there, and
yeah.
The guy that was a skipper, Patrick Foote, who was the skipper of the mothership, he was the weighmaster. So they made him the weighmaster and officiated. And
Yeah. That's some pretty good questions starting to come through already. One from Josh McPherson. Who could neck a bottle faster, Bruce? Bill always told us he ruled the Steinlager challenge.
Oh, Bill holds that hands down. Bill Hall, I presume he's talking about.
We saw a photo of Bill Hall. It must have been. It was a black and white photo of him standing at the end of a wharf, and honestly, he looked like the wild man of Borneo. It was bloody interesting seeing that. God, he must have been an interesting character back in those early days.
He was a hell of a character, and God, he could be a proper prick at times, but by God, he was funny. He was the funniest man I've ever met. He was a great storyteller.
Yeah.
And his books, some of the stories in his books have been just wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So let's keep cracking through. So decision to get into the commercial fishing scene. So you got obviously the game fishing bug. So you got pulled up to the Bay of Islands as a deckhand, but you'd obviously got your ticket before that, I take it.
I had an inshore fishing skipper's ticket, which was enough to drive a boat.
Yeah.
To skipper a charter boat, and they put me on the boat with Curly Ellis, and spent a couple of years with him. He got off and kind of left me at the helm, and made plenty of mistakes because I was a bit of a greenhorn, and it's only one way you learn, through your own mistakes. But we caught some bloody good fish in the meantime as well.
Yeah. But so did you get your commercial ticket back down out of Lee? Did you running some kind of commercial boat down there? Right.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, normal fishing trips or some kind of commercial?
I was fishing with a friend of mine, Logan Campbell. A lot of people will know Logan. He's been fishing the north and east coast for 50 years. And I did my sea time with him doing cray fishing.
Right. Okay. Excellent.
And, yeah.
All right, just a quick reminder about the Q&A. We've got some really good questions coming through already, so keep them rolling in. Just a reminder, we've got that prize tonight, which is being sponsored by Driveline, which is the Hooker Comet and Jack Mack. And big thanks to Driveline for supporting the show tonight. So the move up to the Bay of Islands in 1977, so you got pulled up there to work on the Marco Polo, but that didn't last that long. You jumped onto the Lady Doreen, and that was, 13 years on the Lady Doreen, Bruce?
Yes, it was, yeah. And then John Griffiths and Chris Horton came along and asked me if I'd skipper their new boat.
Yep.
The Striker. That was the one that Salthouse built on the North Shore there.
Yep.
And it was the usual, it was a Corsair, but it had an extra meter in the cockpit.
Yep.
And it was actually a bloody good little sports fisher. A guy by the name of Andy McGocky now owns it here, and he's just done it all up and put it through survey again, and he's chartering with it now out of the bay here.
And that's called
it's called Wahoo.
Wahoo, that's right. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, yeah.
So those early days of fishing in the 1970s, what was it like? What was the marlin fishery like back then?
It was pretty good. There was that, like to catch the first marlin of the season, that like there'd be 50 boats out on any given good day.
Yep.
In any time in December. And the first marlin was usually caught in December, and the last one was usually caught in May.
Yep.
But it's changed a bit since then, and with trailer boats and people, like it's that the fisheries changed in the fact that the trailer boats today are doing what we used to do back in those days.
Yep.
They do shit. New Zealand built some wonderful trailer boats. They really do. And some of them are built for. They really are built for sports fishing. And yeah.
I suppose what we're seeing today, though, is a lot more fishing on the West Coast, which we never probably used to see back in the 70s. Would that be a fair?
I didn't know of anyone that ever went out on the West Coast in the 70s. And in fact, I didn't know of anyone that went to the Kings in the 70s other than the commercial guys. It was Trevor Canty and a few of those guys. And then I went up to the Three Kings with Bill Hall. I think it was might have been about 87, 88. We went on the Turi Kanui in May, and we caught a world record for robin on 15. And God, there was fish everywhere. That was the first time that I can remember anyone going up there and actively just fishing for marlin.
Yeah, wow. And so those early days in the 70s, what kind of fishing gear were you using? Like, was that the early days of glass or?
Yeah, we had glass rods, and we had we didn't have all gold pins, but we had the 14-0s and the 12-0 senators.
Yep.
And it didn't take long. Once early 80s, we had all gold pins, and then later on in the late 80s, the Shimano came on.
Yep.
And gave us
leaders and that were using wire in the early days, or
all wire. Yep, we were.
Yeah.
Okay. Cable, bloody 7-strand or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. And then like baits, and at what stage did lures start coming in?
Yeah, if you've got Gary Coles, we started towing lures full time. He was about the first charter boat that I know of that just towed lures. But most charter boats towed 2 skip baits and 2 lures. But on the Doreen, we towed 4 baits.
Yep.
And
was that a mixture of skip baits and a swimmer or something?
We had 1 swimmer and 3 skip baits, depending on the number of anglers. If we only had a couple of anglers, we just put 2, maybe 3 baits out. But it was a bloody those blooming 4-out riggers. God, because if you turn too sharp, you get the blooming lines all tangled up with each other across the top of them. It was all very exciting.
And with the chair, did you have multiple chairs? Were you 2 up?
We did have 4 chairs. Yeah. I was also bloody. They called me 4 chairs as well as the voice of the North. Because they used to say it was the most cheating boat that there was, but we never did. It was bloody. We always fought them just out of the chairs in the cockpit. The chairs on the flying bridge were just more or less ornaments. And
crazy. And so when did you start running lures?
Probably on the first striker.
Yep.
I was a bit later than everyone else. I like my baits, and but like it, and I didn't catch too many fish on lures, but then I started using pitch baits, which we did. We were very successful at pitch baiting, and I had a crewman with me called Brian King. His American lad, boy, he was good at pitch baiting, switching, and was the most successful form of fishing that I can remember. Just pitching a live bait out or even dead baits. We used to pitch dead baits sometime when we couldn't keep them alive, and just tease them right up to the back of the boat. We'd tease them up sometimes and pop a tag in them and let them swim off.
Yeah, and so. In terms of seasons, did you see big variances in seasons, or
yes,
how
we
did
did. Crikey, it's sometimes there were 2 or 3 seasons there in the 1980s. I think, crikey, I caught 7 marlin for a season, and it was, boy, that was frustrating. The water was green and horrible, and there was no fish.
Yeah,
and it was just the way the currents went, and
crazy.
It was,
and so with and we're going to talk a little bit more about the moratorium and that back down a little bit later on, but did you see like a big tail off towards that kind of mid 1980s when that moratorium came in? Or
we'd had a couple of bad seasons, and Garth Marsland one night that he was on the radio talking about how much the bloody commercial sector was taking, how many billfish they were taking, and so they started the billfish moratorium, and the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club was instrumental in getting a bunch of people together. There was Carl Anderson, John Chibnall, and Garth Marsland, and Garth and Carl both passed on now, but they were the guys that did all the work and everything. And the Warkworth Gamefish Club put a heap of money towards it. They had a bit of spare cash at the time, and we went to battle with the commercial sector, and we won. But we had to tag. It was 90% of our catch had to be tagged and returned to the sea, which astonishingly, and I didn't ever think we'd do it, but we did. The recreational anglers came to, and they started tagging a lot of fish, which was good. And the thing about it is, not many fish were recaptured, but that was probably a good thing, because if you started catching a few fish that had been tagged, that means stock numbers were dropping.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying there, it was really good that the stock numbers must have still been up there. So in the first 3 or 4 years after the moratorium, the fishing actually came back pretty good, and it stayed pretty good ever since then. And the moratorium as itself probably doesn't still stand today, but it's a recognised rule that the commercial sector are not going to involved in taking billfish.
Yeah, so it's kind of morally sitting in there. It's like an aspiration that's still sitting there. Okay.
Yeah.
So in terms of, like, I know for us and my generation, we kind of look up to you guys as kind of the people, like the game fishermen that we've kind of recognised as our seniors in the industry, and the people we've looked up to. Like back in your days, what are your memories of some of those great guys like Snooks and that kind of generation?
When I came to Russell, I rented a house off Snooks, and it was right behind where the Swordfish Club is. It's exactly where Stefan's bloody tackle shop is at the moment. And I used to live in that house, and my neighbour was Francis Arledge.
Oh wow!
God, he was a character. And there was Francis, and there was Jim Whitelaw, Richie Blomfield, and Mervyn Arledge, and old Les Blomfield, and all these guys. God, he used to spend hours and hours and hours talking with them, and God, they were characters. Francis had this harpoon, and it was a drop-off head, and it had a 30-foot trace on it. And I said, "What's that for, Francis? What do you got that for?" He said, if I ever see a broadbill, I'm going to harpoon it. And he said, "We're going to play it and catch it." And I said, he said, "I've got a 30-foot trace on it." And I said, "Well, it's a 30-foot trace. Why are you doing that? You could have it whatever length you like." "Oh, no, I like to play by the rules." But I said, "You're sparing it." "Oh," I said, "that doesn't matter." So but were characters. They were good guys, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of good times with those guys.
Yeah.
A lot of sitting down and talking. Snooks also, boy, we used to go to game fishing charter meetings, and they should have been over in an hour, but by the time everybody's finished talking about their fish of the season, it'd be bloody, they'd go on for half a day,
Yeah. And they would have shared stories of the generation ahead of them, I would have thought.
Oh yes, yeah.
Mm.
It was that Francis started. He was Zane Grey, and Les Blomfield was also fished with Zane Grey, and that's getting back into 1920s, and they were young guys then. Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
Like the Elmer G it's 100 years old this year.
Yeah.
So it was Francis's boat. He built it, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, it was nice jumping on the website, the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club website, and just getting a bit more background on the first marlin to be caught by
Dr. A.D. Campbell.
Yeah, and just that bit of background that Bay of Islands was recognised as a kingfish fishery back in 1915, and that's what everyone was fishing for, was kingfish.
Yes, that's right.
And then for him to be live baiting for a kingfish and catch a marlin, and that's when the marlin fishery kicked off.
It is. Yeah. It's good stories. Yeah.
Yep. So that's where it all started. It's really interesting. And so in terms of that generation, what were the key things that you learnt from them back in those days? Sorry to put you on the spot.
They actually fished similar.
Yep.
They did a bit of drift fishing and with dead baits, and that's why they got the swords, I suppose. They bloody
right.
Yeah, and they did quite a bit of that, and they used to fish. They only fished basically between Wairau Rock and Whangaroa Harbour. That was the areas they fished in, and that Tahiki Reef produced some nice big blacks, and talking about nice big blacks, that fish that oh God, what's he? Captain Mitchell caught. That was 976, I think it was. I think that's what it weighed, something like that. But they cut that into 3 pieces to weigh it because the scales wouldn't, So maybe what would it have been,
Well, I mean, obviously it wasn't weighed with all the guts and bits and pieces, I take it, or was it?
Yeah, it was all there.
It was together.
Yeah, but it was it was they cut it into 3 pieces, and because the scales only went to 200 or 500 pound or some bloody the steelyard scales. Yeah.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
So if they were fishing for swords with dead baits back in those days, they would have had to have gone out a lot wider than what they would normally have gone, or back in those days were the swords in a lot closer?
They didn't go out that wide. No, they didn't go out that wide. They were in a. If you'll see all the photos of the old Tudor Collins photos. You'll usually have Cape Brett in the background and the marlin jumping, and but that's very few of them you'll see with no background. I don't know why they never went out further. And but then they all said that in 1956 the currents changed, and they started going out wider at that stage. So whether that's true or not, but it might have been just a couple of bad years. But they started going out wider and trolling, and
So wide for them was what, Queen's Buoy, Main Rock?
Yes, at 200 metre line probably. Yeah, well, by the time they got out there. But those boats were quite quick. They had petrol 6-cylinder motors, flathead 6-cylinder, and they used to go like Jack the Bear. So
Cool. So I think the other big thing that I've really learnt talking to yourself and Chris and a number of others is I think the big thing we've seen in New Zealand over the last 10 years maybe has been daytime deep dropping for swords, how the sword fishery's really taken off again. And I didn't realize how important the sword fishery for you guys was back in the 1980s and how much you targeted swords back in those days. So maybe you could tell us a little bit of that.
The first time we went out, I think it was 1988, we went out to the Poor Knight's Rise. I think there was about a dozen boats went out.
Yep.
And it was which is actually outside the area where we were supposed to be, but we were arguing with Maritime New Zealand to get an extension at that stage.
Yep.
And I think that first night out, I think Chris Britton caught a sword, and it was a small one. Bob Burstall was the angler, and the other one was a guy called Russell B caught one with John Batterton on the Lady Clare.
Right.
And that was the start of the fishery. It was,
okay.
Yeah.
So how did you find the Poor Knight's Rise back in those days with no GPS?
It was dead reckoning, I can tell you. But it just you had to go out 060 degrees from Cape Brett, and you'd go right across the top of it. So
okay, so you just what that paper chart on a
paper chart.
Yep. Crazy.
But you know you relied a lot on your sounder, because if you were going off course at all, you'd your depths would change, so you knew where you were.
Yeah. But you pretty much knew it was X miles at 060, and you pretty much knew when you were getting
50
close.
miles from Cape Brett.
Right. Okay.
I think that's right.
Nice little story from Michael Savage that we were talking about earlier on was the first marlin of the season, 1990. Do you remember that?
1990 first marlin of the season.
It was a boat, Barney on Valhalla.
Was that 1990, was it?
Yep.
Okay, I remember it.
Do you
Didn't
remember
know what year it was, but I knew it, yeah. Well, there was nobody else around. I went down to the cockpit, and the line's screaming out, and I'm shouting out for an angler, and there was no one there, so I took it myself.
Excellent. It's quite funny because I caught my first fish with Barney about a month later on the same boat.
Did you really?
Yeah. So 1990. Yeah, exactly. God, he was a classic. Great boat though, Valhalla.
Yeah. He's sadly missed, I tell you. He was one of life's characters.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I've got a few stories to tell on that trip, that's for sure. So just on back to the sword fishing. So Lady Doreen, so 13 years. What was the biggest fish you caught on the Lady Doreen in that 13 years?
Black Marlin. I had a couple of blacks over 700 pounds on it.
Yep.
So I caught, crikey, I don't know how many I caught, but I caught a few blacks on that. You know, there was some around the 400 pound mark. But I don't know if I ever caught. I did catch a blue one year. I caught quite a good blue off it. But I caught mainly blacks and stripes, or stripes and blacks. Yeah.
So with the Black Marlin.
Sorry?
No, carry on, Bruce.
I used to hang around. You know, I was a bit of a rock hopper. We never went out very wide, and I suppose that's why I caught more blacks. But we got lucky and caught a few. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was going to come to, was if you're towing baits all the time and you're in that Waiwiri, PSC, bird and pig trench and, pig gully, whatever you call it, and all the rest of it, then you're going to come across the blacks, aren't you?
You are. Oh, you are. Yeah, yeah.
Because they're there every season, aren't they?
They are. Of course they are. Yeah. It's even this year they were there, but I didn't know if anybody caught them. But the best people to talk to are the guys on the hole in the rock boats. They see them there feeding all the time.
Yeah. So here's a question from Hunter Scott. What area have you caught most of your black marlin in this country?
Probably, I'd have to say Cape Brett, Cavelli's.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so what? The Tahiki and
Tahiki, yeah.
Yep. And then what? Back around Waiwiri or more around?
Yeah, Waiwiri. Caught a couple of good ones at Waiwiri, and the hole in the rock there. But always probably, there was never many black marlin caught at the Three Kings, and I would have thought that was a perfect area for them. Just perfect. But there was a few caught there, and but I don't think I ever caught one there. I had one on once, but you would have thought that in the shallows there, which is what they seem to like, and a lot of bait schools and everything, you would have thought you'd seen a lot of black marlin there, but we didn't. I never saw many. There was a few, but not a lot.
So in terms of the sword fishery, just quickly getting back to that, was that just a trial and error thing at night time, or?
Well, it was for us because we didn't know any. We actually didn't have a clue what we were doing.
Yeah.
And it was, and as time evolved, we got better at it. And where did you stick your light sticks? Did you stick them halfway up the trace, or in the bloody hook, or in the bait, or did you fish at 20 meters or 50 meters or 200? It was just and on moonlight nights, did you fish deeper? And God Christ, some of the theories, it was just about you had to be a rocket scientist to work out what half these guys were talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So just quickly on trolling, like at night for those. How did you get onto that?
I read it somewhere that people were trolling for them at night, and the first time I ever tried it was when Murray Hansen caught that bloody world record on. We put the bloody lures over. God, they weren't in the water 10 minutes, and it went off. And that was Murray Hansen's world record. That broke White Wickham's record. Yeah, that's the one there.
Yeah, wow,
it was a cracker of a fish.
Just a ripper. Did you get that just coming onto the bank, or where did you nail that?
We were right up on top of the bank.
Right.
We stopped and we had some dinner, and we started getting going, and that's that next thing it took off, and it had the lure right down its bloody throat too, which I couldn't believe, So
wow. Okay. We'll just I think we might start knocking off a few of these questions and bits and pieces. Just a message from Mike Harris, who we know well, obviously. Barney was one of the true characters of the industry. Where is that? I learned a lot from him in the early days. So did Mike Decky for him?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Craig Saunders, hi Bruce. With respect to many anglers targeting marlin on light gauge hooks these days, we've tried it, didn't like it. What are your thoughts on it? And do you think you would have used it during your halcyon days?
No, I don't think I would have. And they work. There's no doubt about it. They work. But we in 1997 we were the first guys to use circle hooks.
Yep.
And we were scared. We thought we were going to lose every blooming fish. But God, we doubled our catches. We caught some fish, and every one of them was hooked in the corner of the blooming mouth. And they were successful. So that's but they've changed, and I can't get now those same 14-0 mustard tuna circle hooks. They're not the same. They're not the same shape or anything. But boy, we used to catch some fish with those, and they were mouth hooked, all of them. They were really, yeah.
Okay. I think the thing is there's a time and a place for them, and if you fish them right, then you'll catch fish. But if you fish them wrong, then you're going to lose fish. And I think,
that's what we're seeing. They will work.
Yeah. Did you ever use SSTs, or did you just fish your usual hotspots?
I did, but you've got to remember that when I first started fishing, there was no such thing. But they came out, and blue water that's what you look for. And if you find some blue water, that's where you fished. And that's and it's still basically the same today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Blue, if you're in nice blue water.
So if you were heading out for the day, would you just how would you run your normal day? Would you just run out through the middle of the bay, or run out off the pin, or
I used to go through the middle, and then you toss a coin onto which way you went. But you had in your head where you wanted to fish, and that's usually where you ended up.
Yeah.
And like most fish are caught when the conditions are ideal, for want of a better word, most of the fish are caught between 1 and 3 o'clock, because that's it where everybody wants to be at their hottest fishing time of the day. And so that's when most of the fish are caught. So if you're heading out, you look at you might want to go out to the 9-pin trench, say, and you want to be there. You get there for the afternoon fish, and
I can safely say that you weren't scared of pushing a boat in front of you off an area where you knew a fish had just popped up.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, you certainly took charge on the water, Bruce, when there was it was always interesting to be fishing around you.
Oh. No, I used to encourage all the small boat guys around me. And I used to think these guys are out here and they might have a bit of fun. And if there was something there that I thought they should, I'd encourage them to have a go. But
like what?
If I saw a meatball or something like that, and I
okay.
went through it, I'd say come over here and have a look.
Okay.
So,
I just had some funny moments. It was I had to laugh. Coming up on, I knew there was a fish there one day, and I think you had seen it at exactly the same time, and you just went charging for it, and I was charging for it, and it was like one of those the last person to blink was going to get there first, and it was you got there, you hooked up on it too. You caught it.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry about that, Lance.
No, that's all right, mate. Me and AJ just chuckled. It was quite funny. But anyway, we moved on from that. It's a long time ago, Bruce. I forgave you.
Right.
All right, so here's another one from Michael Savage. Would marlin that were caught on lures have a better survival rate compared to a fish caught on a skip bait?
I suppose it might. I don't know. It all depends where the hook was from the skip bait. If it was hooked if you hooked it in the gills and tore them out on the lead or something like that, it probably wouldn't have a good chance. But if it's hooked in the corner of the jaw or something like that, which is I think probably they'd have equal chance.
Okay. One from Ethan Hoggard. What was your best day off the coast, and what year was it?
Crikey.
Would have it been up at the Kings? It'd have to be.
Off North Cape, I had some really good days. It's a good question, actually. I really don't. I can't give him an honest answer. I wouldn't know probably, but I know I've caught 5 or 6 in a day off North Cape there when the fishing's been good. But down off the bay, 2 or 3, maybe 3. I know I've caught 3 a few times. There was some guys here this year. I think they were catching 4 and 5 a day. God, the fishing must have been good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good.
Did you get down to that? I think it was 2010. I think it was 2009 when there was that big run of fish off Whangaruru up to Whangamumu. I think there was like 110 fish caught in 7-8 days.
When was that?
2010, I think it was. I got JB and Guy and them got those world records down there. It was just that.
I remember that now. I didn't. I didn't get down there at all.
That was just incredible.
It was. I remember that now.
So, and just another quick question on a similar thing. If in those early days when you were fishing out of Liam bits and pieces, did you used to see the big congregations of Bream Bay kind of work up some bits and pieces, like the marlin turning up through there?
There was lots of big schools of fish around the Mogahen House. Like big schools of Trevally and that type of thing, and there was fish busting them up, but there was a lot of big kingies there too. So whether they are marlin or kingies or What? So, but all in that area up towards the hen and chicks.
Yep.
All in there. There was big schools of bait, but
Mm.
in those days they used to go right through to the Cape Breton on.
Right. Yeah. Chris Britton's just reminded you of 4 in 1 day on the Doreen during the Billfish tournament in 78, 79.
Oh, did he?
Oh, look at that.
There it is. Yeah. Tell him I only got 3. The 4th one got away.
Oh, the 4th one got away. There we go. It's a quick question from Dan Ford. Is the blue water as important for the blacks as the other species?
No, it's not. No.
Okay.
They'll come in when the water's blue. They'll come in, but you'll get them in that horrible green water there. Yeah. Yeah.
So, what do you think is important for blacks?
Being patient.
Yep.
You've just got to be patient, and if you see a lot of, like on the Tahiki Reef, you go out there and you see a lot of bloody bait fish, trevally and carwo, and big schools of bait and that. You can just about guarantee at some stage during the day there'll be a fish come in there and feed, and it'll be a big one.
Yeah. So if we were to give a little instructional on, how to go about catching a black marlin next season, what would we say to someone? Time of the year. Do you think they're a year?
January. All those. Well, not all of them, but a lot of those big fish were caught in January. And you go out there. We'll use the Tahiki as a prime example. You go out there, and if you get a couple of live skippies and put them over and tow them around, you will catch a black marlin. It might take you 1 hour. It might take you a month, but you will catch one. Yeah.
Okay. So concentrate on Tahiki or get down to Waiwiri.
Some of those areas. Yeah.
Yep. Just wherever the big schools of trevally or carwai.
Bird Rock.
Yep. I mean, even if you towed them in that triangle from Bird through to Pig Gully and through there and back around, and there's gonna be something through there at some stage. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
As well as Mako's.
Yeah, well, you'll get plenty of them, but that's
part
part of the bloody fishing,
So baits, you'd run live baits as opposed to skip baits.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And circles.
Yeah.
Yep.
20 O's.
And just bridle rig them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bridle rig, 20 O circle hooks, and
cool. And you wouldn't necessarily be running them straight over Tahiki. You'd just be running them, at a reasonable.
Yeah.
Just around the outside.
Around the outside of the bait fish,
Nice.
As soon as those baits start getting right on top of the rock and start really bubbling, that usually means that there's it's about to happen.
Okay, cool, awesome. Because I think that's probably one of the things that isn't targeted that often. And if people did actually spend a bit of time on it, I think we'd see more black marlin caught.
You would, yeah.
Because we're pretty much only seeing them being caught on lures.
They're a hell of a fish to catch. They really are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So just a quick one from Murray Hanson. 2 people saw the big black on their sounder at the bottom of number 10 Ribbon Reef, Cairns, Lizard Island tournament. Billy Bilson and Bruce nailed it. So that must have been, so it was spotted by a number of people. Is that what Murray's saying?
We got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, God. And
we'll
get back to that one shortly.
We did.
Yeah. So just one from Shane Schraft. Bruce, did you ever catch blacks on the 9-pin Rocky Point area?
Yes, I did. Yes, but they were. I never caught a big one there. Nothing like the one he got with Gary Coles. They got that. Yeah, they got that big one there. Shane was his crewman when they got that. I think it was 816 pounds. I can't remember. God, my memory's fading me. But that was a cracker of a fish, and it was the biggest fish for seasons. It was wonderful.
Did they hook that up on
a lot of really good fish?
Did they hook that up on a little dinghy or something? Is that the story?
No, it's on the
No?
early barber.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Shane hasn't talked to me about that. Let's get that one quiet.
Yeah, he did, but I'm sure he will if you
Yes.
ask him about it.
Yes, okay. Well, I'll interview him on that one. Cool. All right. So let's just have a quick little reminder about the Q&A tonight. So keep those questions rolling in. We've got 10 minutes before the close for the questions. So just a reminder, keep them coming in. We've got the prize tonight, sponsored by Driveline Finance. It's the Hook Comet. Big thanks to Driveline Finance. So for those that don't know, Driveline is a finance and leasing business. And we specialise in finance and leasing motor vehicles, plant and equipment, all that kind of stuff. For those that might be wondering what's happening with the new Ford Ranger, that is due in soon, and we actually received the pricing for that a couple of weeks ago. And we've just been pushing a few quotes out there just to let people know how that's pricing up. And that's the new XLT Ranger, which we've got going out at $7.99 a month. So anyone that is interested in having a look at the new Ranger when it arrives in June, July, if it actually does arrive in June, July, and you want to get on the order list for when that ship arrives, then give us a call at Driveline. There's the phone number, or just check it out on driveline.co.nz, or get in contact with me direct, and either I'll deal with it personally or put you onto one of the team around the country. So yeah, looking forward to the new Ford Ranger coming in. The pricing hasn't been released to the public yet, but the lease companies, like the one I run, we do have it. So get in touch. All right. So we did touch on, obviously we've been talking about Lady Doreen, which was, 13 years really for the start of your game fishing career when you're running your own boats. And then we got into Striker 1 and Striker 2. And obviously that was the start of the relationship with John and his family. How did that come about?
John fished with me on the Lady Doreen.
Right.
Like years before, and then he rang me up one day and he said, "We're going to build this boat." He said, "Will you skipper it for us?" And I said, "Oh no, not really. I wasn't really interested." And then he asked Dave Arrell, and Dave said no, he didn't want to either. And then he rang me back, and I said, "Okay, we'll have a chat about it." And crikey, it was a wonderful relationship. It was really good. John was he became a very, very good friend.
Yeah, I just thought it was worth acknowledging that tonight. That obviously that was a pretty important part of your life. I mean, it's a long relationship and 2 boats, and I mean that relationship wouldn't have lasted that long unless it was a good one.
Yeah, no, he was. He caught a lot of fish too. He was a very good angler. He was good fun to have aboard.
Yeah. So what were probably a couple of the most notable catches on Striker 1? Do you recall?
I remember the very first time I went up to the Middlesex Bank was on that Striker.
Yep.
And we got up there, and it was glassy calm. And as soon as we got on the Middlesex Bank, there was a little bit of a jobble. It wasn't much, but it was just a bit. I drove just about right across the whole top of it, and I thought, well, God bloody hell, they're telling me about all these marlin here, and we hadn't had a bite. And I was towing 4 skip baits. And no, I was towing 2 skip baits and 2 lures, and the whole bloody lot went off before I could turn around. And God, it was just bedlam, and we lost the whole lot. So yeah, that's I can remember that was on the first Striker. But
wow.
I can't actually remember what anything. Probably, crikey, it's a long time ago. It's 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So just in terms of, so maybe we cut through actually, because I think the whole development of that corridor through to the Three Kings back in 1992, is it?
Yeah, well, it was either 91 or 92. Yeah.
So let's maybe jump into that, because that was the era of Striker 1, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So how did all that come about?
Well, I think it went east of North Cape Light for 25 miles. I think it was 25 miles. I can't, and I should have checked up on this because I knew I was going to get asked this question. And then it went off in a line of so many degrees down behind the back of the barrier down to just off Hovey Beach and then out to Lawton Point.
Yep.
And that was the area that we were allowed to fish, it did not include the Ranfurly Banks, and it did not include the Poor Knights Rise, and it did not include Three Kings Islands. And we had the Marine Transport Association, which we were members of. We approached them to lobby the Maritime New Zealand to let us go to these places. And myself and Steve Haddock and Keith Ingram went to Wellington to meet with the Maritime New Zealand. Wow, Christ, they said there was no bloody way that we were going to go to these places. And I said, well, that's fine, as long as you stop the pirates from going, they're taking our bread and butter,
Yeah.
And anyway, the meeting went on, and then Steve Haddock, he hadn't said a lot, but then he got up and did he let him have it? And boy, I'm impressed with Steve Haddock. He was bloody good. He got the job. He sealed the deal for us, and wonderful. To this day, we probably wouldn't be able to go to the Kings or the Poor Knights Rise or the Ranfurly Bank if it wasn't for what Steve Haddock said to those guys there on that particular day.
Yeah.
But shit, he had all his facts right. He had all his figures right. He was good. He let him have it. He was much better prepared than what myself or Keith were.
Yeah. So was there an issue back in those days with private
absolutely.
getting up there?
Yeah, pirating, yeah. And you don't blame them, they were going up there, and they were going up there, heaps of the guys going up and coming back and then turning around and going back again. Well, private boats just can't afford to do that, but
totally.
These guys,
Yep. Excellent. So that was the start of a whole new fishery for you guys. So
it was, and it probably hasn't always, as I look at it now in hindsight, and we probably ruined it for ourselves a bit. We'd take guys up there and we'd catch them 10 or 20 blooming fish, and they never wanted to go marlin fishing again. So we shot ourselves in the foot a bit. Some guys loved it, and other guys that just didn't want to do it again. And some guys were saying we were backing up too fast, and other guys were saying back up quickly because the bite time's on. We should get into it. We should be getting to it. And it was a bit like that, It was a numbers game, and we were trying to catch as many fish as we could.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose a lot of guys got put off by the weather and bits and pieces.
Well, that's some of the conditions we fished up there were just bloody horrible,
Yep.
And some of the nights we spent up there.
Oh, yeah, totally. And so that fishery kicked off, and how many boats were licensed to go up there in the initial couple of years?
Well, you had to have 2 skippers, and there was other rules and regulations that they had there, but most of the guys were pretty much right with it. But there was myself and Nick Brownlee and John Batterton, and we just they were the. And there was guys like Laurie Ross. There was the regular few that were going up. Yeah.
Cool. And so, restrictions in terms of, was there a limit in terms of where you could operate from within or outside of the Three Kings Islands itself? Was there you were limited to?
There was a corridor across. Corridor across, and then there was a circle went round, which included Middlesex Bank, King Bank, and the Fingers and that type of thing. Yeah.
Okay, but you couldn't get out to the Gobi or anything along those lines.
No, you weren't supposed to, but everybody did.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Never fished. Everybody talked about the Gobi Bank, and we went up there. I went up there several times. and it never really produced what people said it should have produced. It was yeah.
Okay. So just on bluefin, northern bluefin, did you ever get amongst those up there? I mean,
No,
just
no, I didn't.
never saw them, never
No,
hooked one.
never saw it. No, no.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
I
a
got
fishery
big
that.
eye. I got some big eye tuna. I got some quite good big eye tuna, but
Yep.
yeah.
No, it's just something that I just it surprises me now that we've got Nathan's fish out of the shallow patch, and then the one for Ken and them, Ken and the Pascoes
Oh, yep.
up off King Bank.
Oh,
That
was that was a hell of a
which they
thing.
were live baiting a skippy, and we just haven't seen more caught up there in that kind of late February. They're obviously coming through there at that time. I mean, those fish were caught
The other
3 or 4 days apart.
the first one you're talking about was caught off the shallow patch at Wangara, off Howara, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, and like late February. So it just goes to show that those fish are
Got a
through
bloody
there.
good black there a week later, I think. So he had a good break. That was Red Gill Lewis.
Yes. Nathan Adams.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So what was your biggest memories from the King Bank? I mean, I think like reading Bill Hall's book, he learned a lot about lure fishing up there. So what were your biggest memories from fishing up that way?
Crikey, we caught most of ours. Probably 90% of our fish on live baits, pitch baits, and trolling downriggers and towing live baits. That's what we and that's when we first started towing live baits on the downriggers too, which was very successful.
Yep. Yeah. So just on, it's interesting just talking about that moratorium and the tagging program, looking at the Bay of Islands report when I jumped on their website. 210 billfish caught, 151 tags, so they're just over 72%, which is really good to see that tagging rate kind of getting right up there for this time of the year.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised at that because it certainly is. It's a bloody great result.
I think that would have to be one of the highest out there. I haven't talked to Bob or anyone about what's happening for the rest of the clubs. I think we're at about 62% overall a month ago when the latest stats came out, but that's certainly right up there.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. But like a lot of the fish, I believe this year have been very small. So it's people don't want to be seen to be bringing those little fish in.
I think Hunter Scott must be getting fed a few questions, Bruce. When you had Murray Hansen and Graham Heapy on board, did you climb up the tuna tower for some peace and quiet?
Yes. Short answer.
Excellent. Here's the one from Mike again. Mike Harris. Out of all the boats you ran in your time in the industry, which was your favourite and why?
Oh, Striker was good. Striker was. It was comfortable.
Striker 2?
It was
the last Striker.
The last Striker 2. Yeah, it was. It had 8 good bunks on it. So it could sleep 8 people comfortably. It was. It had the tuna tubes and the burley box, and it was well set up. It was good. We could. For catering and everything, it was a perfect. It was really good. It was very, very well set up.
How many hours did you end up doing in that when you ended up walking off?
22,000.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good innings.
Well, that's a good photo.
So what's the story behind that, Bruce?
Oh, that's in the yellowtail tournament with the team of girls I had on. So
excellent.
Yeah, with Dean Nichols there, he was my crewman. He's the guy in the bra downstairs there.
Brilliant. So let's just have a quick reminder. I think we've just gone through to 8 o'clock, so we will be announcing the winner towards the end of the show. But yeah, just once again, just thanks to Driveline for sponsoring that prize tonight. And I think the prize once again was the Hooker Comet and Jack Mack. What was your favourite colour and lure, Bruce?
Purple and black.
Ah, the old black purple, eh? What was your favourite lure?
Kodak Killer.
Oh, right, okay, excellent. God, that was a classic.
The Kodak Killer, God, I've caught some fish, but the old Moldcraft wide range, God, it was a good lure.
Yeah.
Caught the
and
purple and black Moldcraft wide range. Yeah, always had one in the spread.
Yeah, was that the long-headed one or the short blunt face?
The long-headed. Yeah,
with the flat face. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Brilliant. All right, so we're going to play a little bit of footage, and this is what everyone's been waiting for, which is the Hole in the Rock Black Marlin. So we're going to play that. It's going to go for about 30 seconds, I think. And then what we're going to do, Bruce, is at the end of that, get you to talk about what happened that day, because honestly, I remember seeing this way back in the day, and I've always wanted to talk to you about this. So let's play that, Kieran.
Fantastic.
Honestly, what did you think when that fish started heading towards that boat?
I wasn't that worried about it because he was actually quite a long way off, and I didn't ever think the fish was going to get to him. You know, I thought it would go down or do something but I thought, shit, maybe it might stay on the surface. But anyway, he took off, and the fish did go down. So yeah.
So how did all that come about? Because I mean, we talked to Chris Britton, quite a few weeks ago, and he had a quick little talk about it, and then put his 2 pence. So I was always going to look forward to having a chat with you about it as well. So how did you come in on the fish, and how did you hear about it? And
we left the like I said before, the Fuller's cruise boats had seen it. Chris Brown had seen it, and somebody rang me up and told me that it was there. So we left. We were fishing in the Millennium Tournament at Tutakaka, and I think there was a leave port time. You know, you weren't allowed to leave before 6 or 7, or I don't know what. I think, I'm not too sure on that. But anyway, we left, and we ran from there right up to round about the Queen's Buoy area, and tried to catch some live baits. And we were struggling to catch them, and I was getting impatient. So I was giving some cool, calm, and precise instructions to the crew, and we eventually caught 2 quite big skippies, and which is what I went. And we started leading, and I had to lead them in, and we got about 200 meters off the rock, and here's the schoolfish getting busted up, and there's boats going backwards and forwards there everywhere, and then I got in there, and I kind of cut the corner on to go around down towards the hole, and the other boats, for some reason, they were all out a bit. They were all out a couple of 100 meters. The schoolfish must have been out there, and I went down, got down past Dog Rock, and then turned around and came back, and I was right outside the hole, and we got the bite.
Wow!
And we were like, you can see how close we were. We were right in there, and I thought it was a kingy for a start. You know, like I thought, Christ, bloody, we're in close here. But we soon found out it wasn't. But it was all tangled up. It was tangled up to hell. Dean had a hell of a job getting to the leader. It's it was the hook was round its bill, and then up around its dorsal and back through its mouth, and then under its pectoral fin. And but we got lucky. If it had died or anything like that, it would have just unraveled itself, and we would have pulled the hook.
Wow. And what was the fight time on that?
An hour and 50 minutes.
Wow. Okay. And were there quite a few boats around you while it was?
There was a heap of them there. Bob Ash was there. Chris Ash on the Independence. Chris.
Yeah.
Trevor. Ken Taylor on Alibi. Yeah. There was a few there. All right. Those are the ones that I can remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a couple of film crews. You had the TV1 and another.
We had television. We had Television New Zealand guys on board. And then there was Lawrence Wesley was up the tower with his camera. And God, the footage they got was incredible. You struggle to see better footage.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah, it'd be great to get hold of that and get the full thing.
I've got the whole lot. I've got it here somewhere. I'll hunt it down. And
yeah, I think it'd be worth getting hold of that and doing something with it, because it's such a great. You could just hear the excitement in the crew and everything that's going on, and especially with all the boats around and everyone looks. I think is there the Hole in the Rock boat? People are watching it and bits and pieces.
That's where a lot of those photos came from of the boat in the hole there. They didn't realise I was playing a fish show.
Excellent. God, that's just absolutely brilliant. And so that fish went 406, didn't it?
406, yeah.
Yeah. And where did that come in the tournament?
Well, it was pretty quiet fishing. It was bolted ahead, like it was. We cleaned up on everything. It was That's brilliant. It there. Yeah, Brian. That's Brian Furman, the angler.
Yeah. Honestly, that's got to go down as one of the great catches. For footage and just everything. If people are going to remember a catch, it's going to be the Hole in the Rock, Black Marlin. It's just brilliant.
Well, yeah, they are.
Brilliant. Yeah. Cool. All right. So back in 2019, I think you were walking around a street or something, and people were going on about you winning an award, and you found out that you'd won the Tommy Gifford Award. So for those that don't know what the Tommy Gifford Award is, it's an award given every year by the IGFA, but it's not just given by a couple of old dudes at the IGFA. It's given and selected by a bunch of the top skippers in the world, and they sit down and award it, which I think makes the Tommy Gifford Award one of the most special awards out there, because it's given by skippers to skippers. So congratulations on that, Bruce.
Crikey, thank you. Yeah, it was this guy rang me, and he said, you've won the Tommy Gifford Award, and he went on and on and on, and I thought, oh yes, that's very nice, and I thought it's some prick having me on. So I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't tell a soul. I just said nothing, and then oh crikey, I can't remember. It might have been Chris Britton came in, and he said, oh, congratulations on your award. And I said, oh yeah, thanks Chris, that's good. And a couple of other guys said it. So I rang Jerry Garrett, who was the IGFA rep, and I said, what do you know about the Tommy Gifford Award, Jerry? And he said, I think Rick Pollock had the guy from the magazine, the Australian. Can't think of his name, but Rick bloody twigged me to it. He said, "Oh, thank you, congratulations on that award." And I thought, "Crikey, there might be something to this." So I rang Jerry, and I said to Jerry, can you tell me about the Tommy Gifford Award? And he said, I'll find out all about it. And he said, I'll get back to you in a couple of days. And about 10 minutes later, he rings me up and he says, you've won it. You've won the damn thing. Wow. And I said, God, Jerry, that's a feather in my cap. He said, it's the whole damn bird.
Oh, I know. God.
So it was, after that, it was really quite humbling, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was the Australians that put me up to it after the fish on Lizard Island.
Yep. So I think it was Peter Bristow was involved. Was it Peter?
Yes,
John,
he got
Peter Wright.
inducted at the same time, Pete.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said to him, I was a decky in Cairns, and I said, you used to give me shit. He said, you probably asked for it. I probably did.
Brilliant. So you went up to Florida to accept that?
That's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah. And I hope John goes up because I wasn't fussed about going. I didn't want to go, but by God, once you're there and once you're in the environment and everything, crikey, it's really is something. It's a huge night. It really is.
Absolutely. So I agree. It was really nice to hear that John had been awarded.
Oh, well deserved. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that makes 3 of you now. So it's Snooks, yourself, and John, and that's just such a great trio. It's just absolutely brilliant. So just some of the other records and infamous captures. Now, when we were talking about Jeff Stone's hammerhead, and I did a bit of research on that this afternoon, and Jeff Stone actually did catch a hammerhead. It wasn't on 6 kg, it was on 8 kg. And it still stands as a club New Zealand and world record at 153.8 kgs.
God, bloody hell.
So there we go.
Yeah. That's a good day.
Well, I'm surprised that I didn't pick that up for last week's show. So Jeff, if you're listening tonight, congratulations on that, because that's a brilliant world record that we missed.
Can I tell you a funny story about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Jeff came up and he had Jeff and his wife and their friends, another chap and his wife, can't remember the name, Meryl, I think her name was. And anyway, we climb aboard the boat, and they arrived the night before and unloaded all their car, and we went the next morning. We were away for a week, and we came back, and they're getting the gear off, and Jeff says to his mate, he says, well, he said, you go and get the car. And he says, okay, where'd you park it? And he said, well, I didn't, you did. And he said, no. And we looked up, and there it was at the end of the wharf, and it still had the keys in it, and it had been sitting there for a week.
Brilliant.
So very honest people in Russell in those days.
Yeah. So I think the nicest thing about the story, like the relationship between yourself and Jeff, it was really interesting to find out that Jeff used to come up, and he was a client of yours before
he was. He come up from Ashburton.
Used to come up fishing with you, and then came up and got into the game himself. And I think that was quite a nice.
I caught his daughter a world record on Blue Marlin on 15, and not a world record, it was New Zealand record.
New Zealand record,
we caught it, and she held that for many years. It was only broken a couple of years ago. Just out with that young girl out of Tutakaka there. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, really, really cool to kind of, have that little segue between, yourself and Jeff and that record, and just a nice way to kind of blend those two together. That was brilliant. So let's just cover off a few of the records. So we've got the 332 kg sword on a lure, which was caught by Mary Hansen up at the Three Kings. So that was a world record, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. At the time it was. Jerry Garrett broke it with fishing with Jeff, of course, and then John Gregory and I forget the kid's name.
Dicky. Yep.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but yes. Yep. And then I think we've got Kirk Stoneman's 164.2 world record on 10 kg, which
that was a really good effort. We were fishing for kingies, and the leader was 30-pound line.
Wow.
And we couldn't grab a hold of it, and we just had to get close enough to gaff.
Wow.
And I think it was about 3.5 hours on it or something, got it up, and we gaffed it. And
is that the gaff shot 3/4 of the way up, is it?
That was that where the blood's coming out there. Yeah. If you're a decent photographer and you're looking at it, you'd have washed all that off before any of that.
And that one's just been broken by Hayden and his crew. Yeah.
Yeah, hell of a fish. That was a great effort. God, that was a good fish.
Absolutely. So how do you feel when those records get broken?
Oh, congratulations to the other anglers. Crikey,
Yeah.
it's just, it doesn't worry me at all. I think there's always bigger fish in the water than there is out of it. So, yeah, congratulations to anyone that catches a big fish.
Absolutely. And, to hang on to that record since 1994, God, I mean, that's really saying something, it's, and just shows that, 10 kgs, especially with what Guy Jacobson and, and all those guys have been up to with all the light line stuff, for that
John
record.
Bannerton said to me it was the next one that they were going to target. So, but Guy sold the boat and everything. So,
yeah. And then we've got, and this is a story to be told, the 1245 up in Lizard Island. So maybe what we can do is tell the story of how you took Striker up to the islands and across. So how did all that kind of come about?
Yeah, well, we went from the Bay of Islands. We went up to Minerva Reef and then on up to Fiji. We spent a month in Fiji, going out to the Lao group and all around. And then we went from Fiji across to Vanuatu. Crikey, we had some good fishing in Vanuatu. We were only there for a few weeks, but the fishing was excellent, and it was basically, that's why we went back. And then we went from Vanuatu across to Cairns. We spent a month up there, just fishing the Black Marlin.
Yep.
Crikey, and it was Murray came over, and he was just by himself, and he tried to get something. He said, "All you have to do is get yourself here." He said, "I've paid for the boat," but he couldn't find another angler. But just as well, because he got to catch the big fish. But
honestly,
I'll never forget that. It was glassy calm. It was absolutely glassy calm, and I had my head. I was looking down at the sounder because we're getting in close to the reef, and I was looking at the sounder, and I heard the outrigger go. And I turned around and looked back, and it looked like somebody dropped a Volkswagen in there. I'm thinking, crikey, it must have been a big fish because nobody came out. There was the boys that couldn't see the deckies, couldn't see Murray, and Murray eventually turned up, and he didn't even know that the rod had gone off, and he picked it up, and it was eventually, crikey, they popped a tag, and I had my son on, and another guy called Ramey Darling was the other angler, the other Dicky, and he was the leader man. And it was a good thing because he just topped off Peter Wright's boat and was at a loose end, and he came with us, and he was on the lead. He pulled it up, and they popped a tag in it, and then they had the knife out ready to cut it off, and it jumped. So I gave some cool, calm, and precise instructions about getting the gaff out, and it was about 60 minutes, and we had it in the boat.
Wow!
So it was a
that's
hell of a
just
fish.
an amazing fish, and I think we've got the one of it. There it is. Yeah, that's And I think you were saying that was the last fish ever to be weighed at
on the
Lizard
gantry
Island.
at Lizard Island. That gantry was put there especially for weighing those fish, and it was big poles and everything, and it was iconic, and it was just, I couldn't believe it when they said it had been taken down. It just that was the last fish to be weighed on them. It was a hell of a shame. It
Incredible.
Many £1,000 being weighed on them.
And did you get back multiple times to Cairns? I mean, I know I saw you over there when I was over there. You're on Godfather.
Okay, yeah. So I went on the Godfather and Tirakanui. Namu, and done a little bit of time there, and you go back. On the rough days, it's not flash. But on the good days, God, it's good fishing,
Yeah, absolutely.
And even on the rough days, if the fish are biting, God, it's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you mainly just fish the reef, or did you get out to the seamount, or did you?
We fished mainly the reefs. Yeah. I went down around those seamounts out off Cooktown out to the we fished around them a bit on the way over from Vanuatu, but just kind of followed the drop-offs, and we didn't do that well, like we got a couple of smaller fish, but we didn't really see any big fish.
Okay, cool. Hey, we've got 5 kingfish records, I think, from memory. So we've got the men's 6 kg, I think that one is. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's John Bollin's one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So where was that? That was Bay
that
of
was
Islands.
we caught that at Lion Rock. Yeah.
Right.
And
Nice.
there was that. Yeah. And that was a good day's fishing. But Guy Eadie broke that record with a 33 kilo one, and that was with me also. And then my son Matthew caught the 37.8 kilo one, which is now still the world record. Well, that's it there. Yeah.
Wow.
That was a hell of a fish.
That's a great fish.
Yeah.
And whereabouts was that? That was down off Home Point or something, wasn't it?
Home Point. Yeah, it was right there on the bay at Home Point.
Wow. Fantastic. The men's 4 kg, which I don't think we could find a picture of, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was John Bolland as well. Yeah.
The men's 10 kg, I think we might have found that.
That was, men's 10 was oh God. Now this is embarrassing. Can't remember his name. I'll think of it in a minute.
That's all right.
He used to have a charter boat. He used to run his little.
Yeah. We'll get there shortly. Woman's
Yeah,
8.
Yeah, no. First one was Gary Kemsley's wife, Sue Kemsley.
Right.
She had it, and then my wife got it.
Yes.
She broke that, and then but it's been broken since. I don't know who holds it now. And then there was the woman's 10, which we still hold, which is
fantastic.
Williamson.
All right, cool. I think what we're going to do is just get a few of these questions knocked out, so we don't have too many of these at the end. So Alana Fraser, did you ever catch black marlin on the 40-meter reef off the mouth of Paringaringa? Anything up that end of the island? No.
Yeah, no. I caught one real close in. Reasonably close in one day off. Off Rianga there one day. I caught a black, and that's all on good footage of that too with Graham Sinclair.
Right.
So
okay.
That was a black marlin. Good footage, yeah.
But I did. Yeah. Okay. Kelps the Cam, how far inside the pin and Cape Brett have you hooked a fish? How far inside the bay, I suppose. So yeah, that's an interesting one actually.
Well, I'll tell you, in 1980, I caught 2 striped marlin over 400 pounds, and that's the only year that I've ever caught a striped marlin over 400 pounds. And I got 2 of them that year, and one of them was inside the line of the 9-pin and redhead. We were coming in at the end of the day and hopped on, and it was 183 kilos.
Okay. Sam Bray. No, carry on.
I've seen a lot of tailing marlin and that in there, off the Black Rocks, and
I think there's been quite a few caught shallower than that. I mean, when that blue water, when it pushes right in, gets in as far as 50 meters off, 60 meters off redhead there. They get right in there. So Sam Bray,
they caught that 900 pound. They caught that 900 pound black at the 9-pin there last year, didn't they?
Yeah,
in January.
Exactly. Yeah. So one. So one from Sam Bray. How shallow have you found blacks before? How's this go? Have you been reefed by them? Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose. Have
No,
you been reefed
no,
by them?
not at
No.
all. Once you hook up to, once they bite and you hook up to them, they're off. They're on the surface.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, once you get up close to them, they start going boring down. But no, you won't get into the bottom of them.
One from Amber Edwards. How many of your tag and release marlin have been recaptured? So have you had tag cards?
Yeah, I have.
Back?
Yeah. I caught a marlin one day in April on the Middlesex Bank, and I got the number off the tag and left it in the fish, and set it free again. It was still really healthy, and I called up Richie Blomfield on the sked that night, and I gave him the tag number. I said who, and when they got back to me the next day, we'd released it in February. So so one of the few people that's tagged the fish and recaptured it myself. So.
Oh, really?
But there have been yeah.
Brilliant.
So if you can understand what I'm saying here, if we start catching a lot of tagged fish, that means the stock numbers are dropping. But if we're not catching a lot of tagged fish, that means that the stock numbers are still reasonably strong.
Yeah.
If you know what, if you can understand what I'm talking about, and
because they're a lower percentage of the overall stock.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right.
But we've had fish tags returned from all over the Pacific. Even down the west coast of South America, and they go for some miles. They really do. Yeah, very interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, because we get them going straight over to Galapagos and bits and pieces, so they're going even further over. Okay. Right. Interesting. One from Hamish Fair. Just a comment on how the charter fishing industry has changed over the years, which is a really good question.
It is a good question, Hamish, and he. I don't know what he expects me to do.
A loaded question.
Yeah, but I think it's coming back a bit, and what I alluded to earlier on in the interview was we shot ourselves in the foot a bit, catching too many people, too many marlin, and taking them out in rough conditions and everything. And I think that like we used to get a lot of group charters from different industries, and I still get inquiries, and I'm getting a few more each year, and from different industries type of thing, where some like Hammer Hardware, I want to take a bunch of their managers away take 3 or 4 boats or something and run a bit of a competition. You're starting to get that kind of inquiry again.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see the charter industry come back. It was strong there in the bloody late 70s and 80s and 90s. It was really, really good, and it was a lot of fun too. That was part of the fun of the whole.
But it was. Yeah. Was it supported though by private owners with relationships with people like yourself?
Yeah, a lot of the time it was. Yeah. A lot of the time it was, and a lot of the private owners in those days were the likes of Cyril Jordan and the Hudsmith brothers, and these guys that come down from Kaikoura and they go out for the weekend, but you wouldn't see the big numbers of like boats that we get these days coming up, and they come up for a month at a time, say, and stay here, and then they go out 2 or 3 days a week. It's hard to compete with the private boats.
Yeah,
but I think it's and hang on there, Hamish, because I think it's coming back a bit, and he'd probably know better than me anyway, because he's been in the industry for a long time.
But I think when the tax rules changed and that whole private ownership incentive, inverted brackets disappeared, that changed the industry.
Oh, it did too. Of course it did. Yeah.
And that's when all the private guys pulled out.
The honest fisherman, Graham Fraser was that guy's name that caught that kingy on 10.
Yep.
But the honest charter boat guys that were doing you have to do over 50 days or something like that before you can claim the tax on them. Well, the guys that were doing over that, I think, they're the honest guys, so they'll hang in there. They'll be right. Yeah,
absolutely. So one from Craig Livermore: always used to enjoy listening to Smithy and the other skippers debrief at the end of the day, back in the day when everyone talked over the radio, which we just don't seem to get these days so much, I suppose, is what Craig's saying.
Infuriating, isn't it? Infuriating. God, we always used to talk. We used to know what everyone else had done and everything, and it used to be great. But now it's pretty good at the Kings because they can't get cell phone coverage. But it's
everything's top secret, and I think
secret squirrel. I don't think it's good for the industry. No. It's really not.
No. No, and I think the different clubs are different. I mean, Tutukaka's pretty, that channel's pretty open in terms of what's going on around the traps. But I think what we've started to get on the NZ Big Game Fishing site is a bit of free flow of information as to what's kind of happening to an extent. But I don't know why people are so secret about what's going on that day, because at the end of the day, the water's going to move overnight and things potentially change, and so
right.
what? I mean, you wouldn't have been there.
Only the young guys that, I suppose, and that don't really know a hell of a lot about what happens, what goes on. You won't find Pete Saul bloody keeping secret squirrel. He'll tell you what's going on, and those Pete and those kind of guys,
Absolutely. One from Reese Dempster: Smithy is the convener of the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club Yellowtail International Yellowtail Tournament, which is what we're going to get into actually, and we may well just move straight into that. So, and that's coming up shortly. So, how about
months,
so how's all that shaping up this year? Has COVID affected it?
Well, it has over the last 2 years. It's affected it, but at this point in time, we've got Aussies coming back, and it's going to be great to see them. Cool. Anyone that can bring a couple of hundred people into Russell in the middle of winter for a week it's pretty good for the business community, and we hopefully it's going to be successful. We're pretty much full up at the moment. We've got a little bit of a waiting list there, but we'll do what we can to get everybody in.
Yep. So how many teams are you expecting for this year?
We've got 40 at the moment, and that's as many as we like to have. And that's
juniors and seniors?
Juniors and seniors, everyone's classed the same as in that tournament. There is junior prizes for the junior team and the junior anglers, but at the end of the day, they compete against the big boys as well.
So for those that don't necessarily know the background to it, so what is the background to the Yellowtail tournament and the basic history and why it's so strong and important?
Well, there was a couple of Aussie guys here from the Sydney Game Fishing Club, and they walked down the wharf, and it was in September, I think, and there was a fizz boat there with some 25 kilo kingies on it, and this guy said, we should start up a challenge between the Sydney Game Fishing Club and the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club. And that's how it started. It was a challenge, and there's the deed of gifts hanging on the wall in the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club. And that's how it started. And they brought over a couple of dozen members of the Sydney Game Fishing Club, which was a big club in Australia. And they challenged us, and but the rules have changed, and we've still got the Aussies coming over, and if we didn't have the Aussies, it wouldn't be the same. It's a huge week, and it's awesome. It's a fun tournament.
And how long's that been running for us? It's quite a few decades, isn't it?
Years. I think it's been 52 years, 53 years. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I can tell you that's myself, Laurie Peel. We're going from from left to right, it's myself, Laurie Peel, Ellen Osborne, Terry Titchener, who's still coming today, and Val Crawley.
Wow. I think we've got a few other photos. So that's back in the Lady Doreen days. Crikey.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's they had the girls, the Russell girls down there. The Martin Cooges is the only guy there. Jill Ornell, Pat Chambers, and Katie Kane.
Wow.
Russell School Juniors. We won it with the Russell School Juniors. Everybody knows Nat Davey. There he is with the green and black check shirt on. Nat and Tracy. There's Stephen Watson over on the other side here. And Tracy Errol and Tracy Clifford. Trish Clifford. Yeah. But we won it. That was the first time a junior team had ever won the whole contest. Yeah. It's crikey.
Right. So one of the other big things with this, with the Yellowtail comp, is the juniors, and what it actually gives the juniors is the fishing skills. Is what I've been. Well, that's how it's been shared to me, and what I understand now and can see is that it teaches angling skills.
Angling skills, camaraderie, and fellowship amongst anglers and everything. All 9 yards in this, and there's some. It's a pretty. Pretty. There's the Russell Schools put a team in for since the mid-70s.
Yeah.
Then the Wakatani have sent a team up here for crikey, I suppose. 30, 40 years. Whangarei Deep Sea Anglers has been coming up for 30 years. So all these juniors teams, there's I've got a bunch of there was a bunch of boys from the Whangarei Deep Sea Anglers that were juniors, and they won the overall tournament one year, and they're all coming back this year as a team again. And they're
brilliant
20s now.
Nice. And so you were president of the Bay of Islands Swordfish Club. How many years was that for, Bruce?
I have been for 3 years, but I haven't. I pulled out 2 or 3 years ago now. So I've done the stint. Jeff Douglas has taken over, and he's doing a good job. And
great.
It was a hell of an honour. Yeah.
And were you involved in other positions and bits and pieces over the years? And
I've been doing all kinds of brilliant stuff. You're always doing something down there. It's
right.
Just getting. It's an interest, and I've had it for life, and it's served me well. It's been really good.
Brilliant.
A lot of fun.
Question from Brendan Heapy: what decky got the biggest tune-up?
He probably should have. I think poor old Paul Millsop. He got to tune up one day, and he was a hell of a nice guy, and I've been embarrassed about it ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you got memories of some of your best deckies?
Oh, crikey. They've all been good. They've been wonderful young guys, and they come up whenever they come to the bay. They always make time to come around and see me, and it's great to have a catch up. And they always say, "Do you remember the day you said this to me?" And I say, "No, I don't."
How many have gone on to run their own boats and head off internationally and all that kind of stuff? How many have you seen go on to bigger things?
Aaron Winter, he did a good job. Randall Bauer.
Randall.
He's still off. Crikey, he's done well. But a lot of these guys, a lot of these young guys that were deckies in the last 20 or 30 years have gone on, and some of them, some of them are doing real good offshore now. They really are.
Yeah, I think we've got a pretty good representation of Kiwis around the world these days. It's really impressive.
Some of them, yeah.
So just on that, I mean, it's a question. What makes a good decky? What would you say to a young guy that wanted to get into, the dream of being another Bruce Smith, getting onto a boat and being a decky and working his way up?
What you got to be is keen. And you know, and it's not just out there catching fish. It's knowing how to wipe the bench down and clean the toilet and bloody all the shitty jobs that go with it. And to be fair, most of them are pretty good at that. You know, like it's we have our boat had a standard, and we like to keep it at that. And but it has its huge highs and it has a few lows as well. But it's a wonderful industry to get into. But if it can be a lonely industry if you know, like you're not. A lot of time I wasn't at home and I was offshore and things like that. So you know, you got to think of the wives, and my wife's still putting up with me. I've been lucky. So
absolutely. So lots of hard work. Be keen. Do what you're told.
Just keen. And there's some young guys around now. God, they come around and they want to look at my photos and, you know, different things, and I really love it. You know, it's get them out and tell them about this fish and that fish, and it's good.
Brilliant. Okay. All right. Career highlights. Strangest things at sea. You had a good story about a submarine.
Well, it wasn't my story, but it was Tony Butcher's story. But it was when it was just after the Rainbow Warrior, and they took a yacht through to Auckland, and they'd sabotaged it, and they were motoring, and they'd arrested the guy off it was a French yacht, and they'd arrested the guy off it, and when they were taking it through to Auckland, Tony had done something, lifted the engine cover, and it had sabotaged it, and the hot water showered all over him, burnt himself a bit, so he was lying on the deck trying to ease the pain, and he could hear this bloody thumping sound, and he thought, what the hell is that? Is it a trawler or something coming close to us? And he looked up and he couldn't see anything anywhere, and he looks down right next to him, and here's a periscope looking at the boat. So yeah. So
it was right underneath him.
Right there, yeah.
Right there. Far out.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So and then
I
said we had another night there where we saw a UFO. That was another good night. So but I wasn't the only one that saw it, so I was glad about that. I don't know what the hell it was. I still don't know to this day, but it could have been anything.
Whereabouts were you when you saw that? Were you up at the Kings or something?
Off the Ninepin. We were broadbill fishing just off the Ninepin.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything else out in the ocean that any close encounters? Any close encounters with? Okay.
You know, we did. I've done a lot of crossings now, and you don't see, once you're out offshore, you don't really see other boats or anything else at all, really.
Yep.
It's pretty lonely.
Okay.
And you seem to see a lot.
Just a few more questions. So one from Doug Wilson, out of curiosity. Did you always run pen, or why pen over Shimano? Were you always a pen man, or?
I was a pen man, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And for no particular reason at all, because Shimano was like, they were really good. But I just fished with pen, and I knew how to pull them apart and fix them blindfold type of thing. So and they never cost. I never had a real cost me a fish or anything. So.
Wow. Okay. And what were you generally running? 50s or
37s, 50s, 24s, and one, you know, like we used to. Once people had caught a few fish, 15 is a great line weight for striped marlin. It really is. It you know, it raises the bar. It's a bit of a challenge, and you can actually wear the fish down pretty easy on a 15. It's a great line weight.
So the sooner you could get someone onto some light line and have a bit of fun with them, the better from your point of view.
Yeah, I used to enjoy that. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So favorite rigs for marlin. So I'm just going to run through a quick fire kind of set of questions on rigging and bits and pieces, just for history's sake. So what was it lures, skip baits?
Live baits, bridle rig live baits. Yeah. That's the you know, you could have them as either pitch baits or tow them. You know, it didn't matter which way it was, but that's what we caught probably 90% of our fish on.
Okay, so you would tow lures into an area until you kind of found the marlin and then start running them, or you'd
yeah. You know, and it like I'd have 2 lures out the back, and then a couple of teasers in close, just off, and and then we'd have the pitch baits ready. We'd have a couple of rigged up, ready to go.
And what were you generally running for teasers? Like a couple of big lures, or
just lures? Yeah, a couple of lures.
Okay. And Derek Gerritson's just chimed in and says, "I always talk about the UFO." Was he there? Was he?
He might have been. There was Nick Brownlee, and Nick Brownlee was out on the Aquarius, so he might have been on that. Right. But I had a guy called Peter Corporal, that was my crewman that night. And,
nice. So lures and rigging. If you were rigging a lure for stripies or blues, were you rigging them the same, similar, or like single or double?
Most of the time, I used to have the bend of the hook just hanging flush with the bottom of the skirt.
Yep. And swinging or a stiff or semi-stiff rig, or
both.
Both.
Little,
okay.
Yeah, it all depends how big a hurry I was in when I was rigging them. You know, just.
So you weren't too fussy on the setup. It was Okay. Hook size?
12-0s.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and were they generally what, mustards or something, or?
Mustards. Yeah, usually mustards. Yeah.
Okay. And would you run a like basically just what, 2 black purples or a black purple and something else, or?
Yeah, there was a Richter, a pink Richter I used to run.
Yep.
And that caught some fish. And then there was the old Kodak killer with, it could have been any color. So
okay.
Well, thank you. So
any tricks of the trade for blues or stripies?
Not really.
Just get out there and put the hours in.
Yeah, put the time in. It's all you got to do is put the time in, and it's the greatest leveler in the world. You can go out there and you can throw lures or baits all day, do your best bloody fishing, and you come in at night and you're kicking your bottom lip along in front of you. You're just pissed off. You're just. You've done whatever, and then next morning you're going out with renewed enthusiasm, and boy, you're going to kill them. And that's the way it is. It's just, I've been like it. I just, I hear people whinging and moaning and bleating about having a bad run, and I think, Christ, I had those bloody, I must have been exactly the same. And I always said, if you grizzle hard enough and long enough, someone listens. You end up getting a bite.
So when you would come across a big school of dolphins out off the middle of the bay or up off Takao or something along those lines, what would you do with dolphins? Would you just ignore them, run with them?
We used to get a lot of yellowfin out of dolphins. We don't seem to get as many these days. I don't know why. But they used to. If you got right up in front of, if they were going in a certain direction, if you had put a bit of power on and got up in front of them, you'd quite often get a yellowfin. The yellowfin seemed to be up in front of them.
Did you catch many stripies amongst them? I never had much luck.
No, not a lot. I have caught them. I got a double strike in amongst a bunch of dolphins feeding once, and I thought I had 2 dolphins, but there were 2 marlin.
Yeah.
Never caught never even had one. Look at the bait.
Okay.
Which is good.
Quick questions from Simon Paul. What's Bruce's memory of Bull Hall? Is there a defining memory of Bull or couple?
Funniest man I've ever met in my life. Hilarious. Just great storyteller.
He must have been reasonably, like, you read his book and you run through, how his lure development and all that type of stuff. He must have been reasonably obsessive about it.
Oh,
Was he?
he
Yeah.
loved, like he had 2 drawers on the Te Rekanui that were absolutely full of lures, but they weren't rigged. They were all just loose in the drawer. And he'd go through and he'd tip the bloody things out, and he'd rig 4 lures for the day. And then if he hadn't had a bite, he'd pull one in and he'd just cut it off, put it back in the drawer, and rig another one. He'd never had a drawer. He never had a drawer full of rigged. Well, sometimes he used to have a few, but he very seldom had a drawer full of rigged lures. And he just used to rig them for the day.
Wow, crazy.
Yeah.
And so you spent quite a bit of time with him fishing, or
I spent a hell of a lot of time with him fishing, and you should have a talk to his wife. She'd be good at answering some of these questions. She'd be very good, Robin. She's there on.
Yeah, because she's still holding quite a few records, isn't she?
Oh, she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's a very good angler, very good, and she still really enjoys the fishing. She's going to fish Kona this year, and yeah.
Nice. Just a couple more questions, and then we're probably going to close up, I think, Bruce. So one from Shane Dixon. Any encounters with Brutus?
No.
No, never saw Brutus or
No,
the little brother. No. Okay.
No.
One from Paddy Bahane. Blue Kohiru as a live bait. Was that your go-to?
That's absolutely the best live bait ever.
Yeah. Nice.
They're more, or if you're lucky enough, if you can get out off the outside and you catch bloody those English mackerel or the Spanish mackerel, the big ones, like the Kawai sized ones, they're really good also. Yeah, but the bigger you can get, the better.
Brilliant.
Good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Bruce, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on tonight. I'm sure we could go on for hours.
I hope I've taught a few people a few things. And
honestly, it's been brilliant. It's
good on you. Cheers.
Yeah, 2 hours of total enjoyable chat. So thank you very much. I'm sure everyone's really enjoyed it. We've had a heap of questions come through, and we haven't been able to get through all of them. But yeah, brilliant. So look, we've got a competition winner, and that person is Dan Ford, and his question was, is the blue water as important for blacks as other species? And I think we answered that as no. So Dan, you've won the Hooker Comet in Jack Mackerel, and that's coming to you courtesy of Driveline Finance. So yeah, we'll get that out in the courier to you. We'll flick you a message, and we will get that out to you. So once again, thanks to Driveline for sponsoring the prize tonight. And just a couple more announcements. Now, we're going to have a 2-week break, and when we come back, our next guest is going to be coming in live from Tahiti. We've got Tom Francis, who we'll all know from Ultimate Lady, and also he's got Seawolf up there now, which hopefully you guys are following. So he'll be coming to us from Tahiti. Not sure whereabouts in Tahiti, but I'm sure he'll be up there somewhere. So really looking forward to that. Haven't caught up with Tom for a while. Once again, big thanks to Driveline, and just a reminder too that we've got the NZ Big Game Fishing Shop. If you need any lures or any other rigging gear or anything along those lines, get over there. We're also going to be putting on there over the next little while the interviews and the live chats. So keep an eye out for those as they get in over there. And I'm not sure if we've got a picture of the tuna kits, but I know we've got one of those left. So for any of you that are looking to line up some tuna fishing when you head down to do the Southerns shortly, we were promoting those last week. We've got one of those left, and if you want to get onto the list for the next order, then give us a message or flick us an email and we'll get you onto the list for the next order that was going to be going out in the next few days. So jump online. I think we've got some info on that on the main web page and on the group page for NZ Big Game Fishing. So check it out. And I think that's pretty much about it. So we've got the winner announced. We've got Tom coming online first week of May, and brilliant. So thank you very much, Bruce. Just hang in after we close the show down, and I'll just have a quick catch up with you with Kieran. And thanks, Kieran, for your work behind the scenes. It's been awesome. And we'll catch up with everyone in a fortnight's time. So thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you then.
Fantastic.
Good on you, Lance.